Hello everyone, welcome back to another edition of Bragging About Cinema. Happy New Year. I have spent my entire day binge watching Cobra Kai Season 4. Well, this has become a little bit of a tradition. This is 2 years in a row. I have watched an entire season of Cobra Kai on New Year's Day. Now, a little background, I am a huge fan of the Karate Kid series. I had the headband. I loved all three of the movies equally. And at the end of last season, when we learned who was going to be in this season, I couldn't wait. I've been waiting an entire year to watch this film. And I'm going to say right now, it did not disappoint. I'm going to give you the review, A+, Gambit Paw of approval. Make sure you hit the subscribe button, then the notifications button so you can hear all about it. I think the best way to sum up this season is everybody's doing the same things over and over again. There's one voice of reason, and by the end, everybody learns what they're doing wrong, and the voice of reason goes off the rails. I'm not going to spoil anything for you as best I can, but I think that's a good way to sum it up. Now we've come back. We've got the interesting dynamic. Everybody has swapped dojos once again. You've got the new Eagle Fang dojo by Johnny teaming up with the Miyagi-Do to take on Cobra Kai, and the loser of the All Valley tournament can no longer have a dojo. Since his opponents were teaming up, John Kreese decided that he was going to get his old friend Terry Silver. Now, if you haven't seen Karate Kid Part 3, I highly suggest you watch that before coming into the new season of Cobra Kai. He was a huge favorite of mine. I thought he was a great villain. He was pretty dark, pretty crazy. He really complemented John Kreese's style well. I loved how he was built up our Karate Kid only to break him down. And of course, at the end, he lost, but he made it a lot of fun along the way. Now, when we meet up with Terry Silver, he is not the same person. He has learned from his mistakes. I think my favorite part in the beginning, where he was like, you kind of just come to a moment, realize all the things they were doing were not right. I mean, they're picking fights with kids, and it's not what the Cobra Kai he was all about. Now, I loved the power struggle for Cobra Kai's soul between him and John Kreese, as John Kreese is the, as you know, strike first, strike hard, no mercy sensei, and Terry Silver comes in. He is a little more grounded. He wants to learn from his mistakes, which, if you've been watching Cobra Kai, no one on the show learns from their mistakes. Johnny Lawrence does everything the same. Ralph Macchio's character does everything exactly the same. So it was kind of a breath of fresh air to have another character come in and be like, whoa, 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 this isn't working. We need to switch this up. I think the highlight of this season was the character development from the beginning of season 4 to the end of season 4. The adults specifically, I'm going to start with Johnny Lawrence. He's my favorite character on the show. I can relate to him now. I hated him when I was a kid. I thought he was an absolute bully. He was kind of that person you just didn't like. But then as an adult, he's kind of reminds me of, a lot of people I know, where they're the bit of the fish out of water. They are older, so they don't understand the younger generation, and which happens with every generation. I love his old school humor that you just don't see in a lot of characters on shows anymore, and I think it blends well with the kids, so it's not too over the top. But it's pretty funny. We get to just delve deep into what makes his character tick. What is his big problem? And of course, it comes back to his parents. And I realized almost everyone on this, every kid and a lot of the adults, one of their parents were gone. So for him, his son keeps going to his rivals, and then he has his stepson that he's trying to build, not a stepson, his girlfriend's son, trying to build a relationship with them. And, it's a struggle for him. And just watching him struggle, and he'll make some little improvements, and then he'll take a couple steps back. He'll not he'll learn not to just dive right into the fight, but then the fight opportunity comes up and he goes in swinging every time and always lands on his butt. The banter between him and Daniel LaRusso was highlight of the show. There was one point they were going to fight each other, and he was pretending to do the crane kick, the famous kick, and he was just kind of laughing, dismissive about it. That made me one of the many laugh out loud moments that we had on this season. Now, I've always felt like Daniel LaRusso is the problem on the show. He had all these great teachings from Mr. Miyagi. He was supposed to be the calm one. He's supposed to be the level-headed one. He doesn't want to fight, but he is just a hothead. He is confrontational. And Terry Silver's character points that out to him, that it was easy to manipulate you because you're just a hothead. You're always going in there swinging. You are a little bit of Cobra Kai. And I think that's fair because he is constantly egging on the bad guys. He never can just walk away, which I feel like Mr. Miyagi would have done, because he said the best way to win a fight is to not be in the fight. I think, though, by the end of the season, we finally had a breakthrough with old Daniel LaRusso, the successful car salesman who grew up poor, moved all the way to Los Angeles. He realized that there are many different ways, and we have a definitive answer on the show, and I won't spoil it for you, as to which dojo is better, which way is the best. And it's kind of cool, and it's seeing him come to that realization. He really has to swallow some humble pie to learn his lessons. And another great part of this show was their son. I mean, for 3 seasons, we saw his son make almost a cameo here and there. And he was, not, I wouldn't say a huge part, but he certainly played a role this year. We got to see him. And, of course, the spoiled kid turns out to be the bully. I thought there was a funny scene with Johnny when Daniel LaRusso's son came in and he's like, "Who are you?" It took me a minute when I first saw him on the screen. I was like, I think that's who that is. Also, the kid has gotten older. But it's interesting because I've always thought they left him off and he was not really part of the show. He was always in his sister's shadow. So I was glad that they kind of had a little interaction with him. Now we have John Kreese. I've always thought he was an interesting character because he toes the line between, the awful person you don't want around your kids, teaching them no mercy, strike hard, decimate your opponent at all times. But then he has these moments where he has the big heart. He really cares about his students. He defends them not just with his fists, with words. His one student, he lets the Daniel LaRusso's wife know that, this student is taking care of her mom and that she's not just this awful person. And he even eventually backs off a bit by the end of the movie, which was shocking. But then he had other moments where he didn't want to share the power of Cobra Kai and was upset because the kids weren't striking fast and striking hard, which that confused me a bit as his constant towing the line. And maybe in the next season we'll have a complete redemption arc and he'll be a great guy with the rest of them, but who knows? Now back to Terry Silver's character. I thought he was the adult in the room for a majority of the season. He was not really getting into the shenanigans. He wanted to win the tournament. He didn't want to do any of that other stuff. He was a big part of it in Karate Kid Part 3. He even tried to meet with Daniel LaRusso, and he was rejected. And I really think that was what set him off to going back down the dark path where he was going to win at all costs. And he certainly did his best to win at all costs. I won't spoil it for you, but I think at the end he comes full circle from the guy who learned his lesson in the beginning to back to the guy that didn't learn his lesson and ready to be the villain that he should be. Now, for the kids, they all had pretty similar character arcs. They all learned, how to get along, but they hated each other. Typical teenage stuff. You're gonna love and hate you. One day, someone's your best friend. The next day, they're not. But I thought they all grew. We find Miguel interested about his father. We see LaRusso's daughter really going from the good good girl to turning into almost a villain. They all bully each other, so it's kind of, you can't say definitively that there is the good kids and the bad kids because they all have their moment. I think they're just kids. But by the end, they all had that kumbaya, kind of seeing error in their ways, if you will. And so I'm wondering what next season will entail, what's going to split the group, divide the group even more, and make an us versus them mentality. The pace, I thought, for this season, this was a page turner if this was a book. We just kept going through the whole season. I thought the episodes being between a half hour and 40 minutes, they flew by quickly. They were all really, each episode had a purpose to progress the story. I like the direction, the growth, as I mentioned earlier, of all the characters. I felt like we left off in a pretty good place and we set up season 5, which has already been announced. Looking ahead to season 5, we see all our characters are heading off in multiple directions. So it's going to be interesting if there's less of a focus on the karate portion or more of a focus. The surprise character that showed up at the very end, and I won't spoil it for you, but I was like, whoa! And my kids kind of looked at me and were like, who's that? So if you're not a fan of the movies, you should brush up on the movies before you watch it. Because I can't wait to see this new character have a major role, or new old character from the movies have a big role in the next season. So I would say if you loved the other seasons, you're going to easily love this. If you loved Karate Kid, you're easily going to love this. The beginning of the season, it was a little bit, felt like it was more of the same, but I think that was actually by design to really show that these guys, these girls were just stuck in a repetitive wheel, constantly doing the same thing, making the same mistakes. And thankfully there was, that plot came full circle as lessons were learned this time. Now let's see how they apply those lessons in season 5. This has become a fun New Year's Day tradition, so I hope season 5 comes out on New Year's Day. So I would love to hear below what you thought on this season if you watched it. I'm also interested, are you a fan of Karate Kid or did you just watch Cobra Kai? I grew up in the 80s, so I was a huge fan when I was a little kid. I was a fan of Cobra Kai when it was first on the YouTube channel. Then it moved over to Netflix. So thanks for watching. Looking forward to a full fun year of reviewing movies and TV shows and maybe a few other things for you. If you haven't heard, when you watch my channel, you're actually going to find something to brag about.